What I found is that as I get into this project and I get confronted with things that people have never seen before, like Numenor, there's a moment of when you realize that the responsibility that's there now to create visuals that are going to go into everybody's minds in some degree, even people who watch the show, people who don't watch the show, to some degree, it's out there now. It's something nobody's ever seen. Whenever you get one of these aspects of Tolkien to work on, what I have found is that the type of people attracted to this kind of project are the people who want to give that kind of service to those things, and actually can't sleep knowing that they haven't done everything they possibly can to make it great.
Yeah. Hi, I am Chad Anderson, one of the hosts of Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we are delighted to interview film and TV professionals, and this week we are pleased to be joined by Visual Effects Supervisor Jason Smith, whose work includes so many things, from working with ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, including the Avengers series, the Transformers, bunch of Marvel films, as well as a number of things that Industrial Light and Magic works on. Most specifically today, we're talking about Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power on Amazon. I want to thank you so much, Jason, for being here and
I'm happy to
being
be
able to
here.
talk to us. I want to ask first about with Industrial Light and Magic doing so much work and doing so many and having their hands in so many different ventures. How do you, as a supervisor, get chosen for what you get to be a part of?
Oh, wow.
What is the direction of how that gets like decided out?
Yeah, I'll say that the truth is that it's very much, just kind of, driving down an icy road and trying to steer yourself towards the projects that are interesting. And sometimes the tires catch and you're able to do it, and sometimes you slide right on by. you know it really is, it feels like it's something that you're only ever about 1/10 in control of. And a lot of the time the show that you end up on is because you happen to know somebody creatively that you've worked with and that has worked with you, and trusts you for a certain thing. Like I came up through the creature group at ILM. So,
Yeah,
I got known as somebody who could, do these rigging things and things like that. And that became how I was pulled onto like Lion Witch of the Wardrobe or Transformers. You mentioned, like, that was one that I was probably pulled onto Transformers because of my rigging background. And so, yeah, you get known for the things that you can do. And then as the projects start to come up, people start to think of your name. And I think as long as you're somewhat reliable, and not too much of drama to work with, I think, then you kind of get to the point where the projects are there to kind of choose from, and you can be kind of lucky that way. ILM is also a pretty amazing place to work,
sure.
because I've been there for, I'm coming up on 25 years, if you can believe it. It's kind of insane, but I've been there a long, long time, and they just tend to get projects that are meaty, that are really hard and exciting. And
Yeah,
can you make the Hulk out of Mark Ruffalo?
sure.
And
Yeah.
it's like, well, that sounds really exciting. Get a bunch of people that all feel the same way, and it's a lucky place to have kind of cut my teeth, I think. It's not that many places actually in the world that move from big project to big project like that. And I think it was one of the things that kind of made me really lucky.
I think what attracted me to color correction was the fact that we were like the next stage of cinematography. And the creative side was huge, trying to understand what was wrong with an image, how to balance it, trying to understand how to let the tools do what you want them to do. Where else can the technology go? What else can we do? I'm very interested in trying to mold the image and create the best look possible. And whatever tools are out there, you want to try and latch onto them. I'm Eric Whipp, and this is my course on color correction.
Yeah, I mean they really are the namesake in terms of visual effects. I mean people, people who don't know about visual effects know about Industrial Light and Magic, and they are the big umbrella, and it's kind of,
Yeah.
eye-opening to see the things that come out of there.
Well,
In
and it's
terms
it's
of
also great because you can go to dailies for another show, as long as you're, circumspect, as long as you're kind of quiet and stuff. You can go to dailies for another show and see how, Dennis Muren leads the show, or John Knoll gives feedback on Pirates of the Caribbean. You can just sit there and kind of soak it in. It's like getting a master's degree and a PhD every day.
Yeah.
That you're there. You could even go to animation or creature dailies and pick up like, the way that those eyeballs need to see things, that's different from, somebody who's in charge of lighting. So it's yeah, I think it's a convoluted road to end up on projects. The way I ended up on this one, I'll tell you, was actually because it shows you the convoluted road. It's because I did Bumblebee with Ron Ames, who is a producer, really
Okay.
fantastic creative producer and kind of a mentor for me too. I did Bumblebee with him, and the only reason I did that is because I did Transformers 5 with Michael Bay and Scott Farrar. So it's this road that you wouldn't expect, but by doing that, I ended up with Ron Ames, who then got this project and wanted to bring me along. So you never know the way that things are going to go. And I tell a lot of students actually. I know the people who use your service. There are a lot of working filmmakers, right? Like people who work
Yeah.
in some area of film and just want to branch out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I
And
tell a lot
learn
of
more about
students,
the industry. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I tell a lot of students like, don't worry if your career takes you in one zig and then you go in another zag, and you're like, well, why did I spend all this time learning, Blender, when my company now uses Maya? Don't worry about that at all. The universe has a funny way of taking everything you've learned and giving you opportunities in some large or small ways to kind of benefit from it. It's really
Yeah.
funny the way
Yeah.
it works. Like I've had things in my life that I've learned dug in on and kind of like picked up a skill or something like that, and then I set it down for 10 years. And then later it becomes important again.
In terms of rings of power, I talked to the cinematographer about this previously, and some design people, but in terms of staying true to Tolkien,
Yeah.
I imagine there's a high bar for maintaining the authenticity, and that goes into, hey, when you make this visual effect, or if you make this land, or you make this set
Yeah.
extension, how do you stay, not alienate the Tolkien people?
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, that like I grew up and Tolkien was important to me, and I had the artwork before I had the movies to look at,
Hmm.
and it was already something that had a visual language for me, from growing up. And what I found is that as I get into this project and I get confronted with things that people have never seen before, like Numenor, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's a moment of panic there when you realize like that the responsibility that's there now to create visuals that are going to go into everybody's minds in some degree, even people who watch the show, people who don't watch the show, to some degree, it's out there now as this thing Numenor, or let's say Entwives, something nobody's ever seen. Whenever you get one of these aspects of Tolkien to work on, what I have found is that everybody on the project, the type of people that are attracted to this kind of project are the people who want to give that kind of service to those things, and actually can't sleep knowing that they haven't done everything they possibly can to make it
Yeah.
great. Like I still remember on season one, we had a few scenes that took place with having to do with the stars in the sky, and manipulating those and some constellations and things like that. And I will tell you that we ended up with every letter we could find, every mention in the books of any constellation or stars that we could find all throughout the books, and we made a star map, a complete star map. And what you see as the stars in the sky on our show is a consistent star map of the stars and constellations of Middle Earth, is consistent with what Tolkien said. Does that matter? Does anybody notice that? Does anybody care? It's debatable. But why did Tolkien invent languages for his
Yeah.
books? He did that because paying that kind of respect to the world, it shows through in what he writes later. He
Yeah.
he had all these things that he figured out, how the days of the week were named, and went through Hobbit language and things like that before they became the, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He had all this stuff written down. It was never in any of the books, but it was in here. And I think
Yeah.
there's a thing there that is I've talked about it a couple of times before, but like the fact that he always started from a map, you know,
Yeah.
like nobody
It's
knows
world building.
that, but there's something kind of spiritually right about saying, you know what, I'm going to actually study up on Numenor as much as I can and know everything that I can about it. And there's still going to be gaps. Tolkien left them there for us, like little Easter eggs that we can fill in with our own minds. And we want to leave some for the audience too, but um, the taking it seriously, the looking at the lore, the responsibility for us, it's not at all about the people who will be angry. It's about wanting to do the best we can for Tolkien and for
Yeah.
the people who are watching the show and the readers. So, people will still get mad because you have to go one way or the other sometimes, you have to decide whether this thing, has wings or not, and so there's always those moments, where you have to make a choice and we sometimes we just try to be ambiguous, but um, it is really, really a lot of responsibility, and I think we all take it pretty seriously.
Yeah, I mean, you are kind of almost defining canon, like this is going to be
Yeah,
beyond Tolkien. You are saying,
yeah,
you know, this was not, Tolkien. This was me. I put
yeah.
wings on this.
And people will decide what they think is canon. To me, I grew up with the Rankin Bass cartoons. And so to me,
Oh,
as a child, I mean, look, those were just fantastic. And people will chuckle now about some of the music or something, but to me, it was just that was Middle Earth. And to me, it became part of that canon. It really did.
yeah.
So we do have to take it seriously, and we have to think like, okay, Tolkien worked hard on this, and there's a lot of people, millions of people out in the world who love this world and loved Peter's films. We have to make sure that we are good stewards.
Yeah.
That's what it is. We're watching the house for the weekend, and we're doing the best that we can to kind of keep it in good shape.
In terms of the workflow, I'm always fascinated by. It just seems overwhelming the amount of work, the organization of
Oh yeah.
they're shooting on set and they have these enormous set extensions.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you're getting previs or you're getting work that says, hey, you have to build Mount Doom or you have to
Yeah.
build
Yeah.
Balrog or you have to build
Yeah.
whatever. How does the organization of that work? How does the
Well,
pipeline of that work?
that's a fantastic question, by the way, because a lot of people don't think about that part of it,
I
and the fact that that is what determines whether you succeed or fail. It really is the thing that you just mentioned, the thing that you just brought up, the organizing, like how you spend your time and where you put your creative effort, because you can just sit there and think about constellations all day and you feel like you're getting stuff done, but you're not doing the right things and you're not preparing people for what's going to happen on set. So what we do is we depend on our production team. Like this season, we've got James Yeoman, who's my visual effects producer, who's in charge of like really organizing everything and making sure I'm in the right place at the right time. Because a lot of creatives kind of need to be pointed into the right meeting.
Mhm.
And I'm one of those too. But the other thing is having great supervisors on the show with me. Like at any given time, we can have 3 units going, filming, uh, like simultaneously, at the same time that I'm thinking about 4 episodes later, a really hard creative problem is coming up, and I'm trying to think about like how are we going to tackle that. The script says this and this and this, so how do we make that visually interesting? And really what it comes down to is really planning it out, dividing and conquering, making sure that the supervisors know what to do on set, and kind of making each minute count. And then when you get into post, think about this. Like a big Marvel movie, or I've done these movies before. It's usually a couple of thousand shots, right? Let's call it 2,000, just on
Mhm.
average, right? A show like this, where any shot can be a visual effects shot because the whole world is kind of it's not really Earth, right? You can have some relief if you're in a forest or something like that, but generally it's like a lot of visual effects shots. Let's say 6,000 for the sequence or for the season. If you have 6,000 shots and you get to review each one for 1 minute per day, how many hours is that? And can you give the right notes in 1 minute? Like the shot comes up and you're like, I don't know why it doesn't look good, but let's think about this. No, you don't get to. It's 1 minute. And even if you did that for 1 minute, you're talking about, what is it? Is that 100 hours?
100 hours, yeah.
60 to, yeah. So you can't do that. So now you have to spread it out over 2 year period and say, how many shots can I review per day? How many minutes do I get? It's such a huge organizational machine that I wish everybody could see it, actually. I really do. I wish everybody could see how there's 1,500 artists all over the world that are Tolkien
Yeah.
fanatics that wanted to be on this show and make that thing for them to see, that are all trying to work in tandem, and they have to hand off their work at the right time so that the next person can take it. And there are people out there whose job it is to make sure that that pipeline is right, and that we're all doing the right things at the right time, and that we're finishing when we should. Because if we don't finish this here, then we'd never be able to start this when we need to start it over here. Anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but it's like,
No, it does. It
it's
definitely
so
does.
important.
Yeah, it would be one of those things that I would lose sleep over, waking up at
Oh
four
yeah.
o'clock in the morning and thinking to myself, wait, did we get this rigging right for this one thing to because we now have to look at it on Friday.
If you have a good producer, you wouldn't have to lose the sleep, and that's the key. It's like a good producer, a good production team, they just keep you safe, and you don't even have to ask if that rig is going to be ready on time because they've got it covered. And that it's so good because that lets you as a creative person just shift over and say, what color would that be? What color would this flower be? You get to
Yeah,
start
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
that kind of stuff. And if you couldn't do that, then you can't be creative and the show suffers. It doesn't look as good without the people that keep us organized. It wouldn't look the same at all. It's kind of interesting.
So it's crazy. I have a weird question, and this
Yeah.
is just maybe more from me. I have a background in After Effects,
Hmm.
and I can wrestle my way around Cinema 4D and create an
Yeah.
IK
Yeah.
chain and those kind of things.
Yeah.
I understand that Industrial Light and Magic is, from my perspective, the big leagues. It is really, it is, the NFL version of
It's
that.
a great place.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't imagine, with all the other things I'm doing, that I'll ever be up to that capacity. When do you know that you're up to that capacity to work on a Marvel film or a
I have an answer for you
Transformers
on this.
movie?
I have your answer. And the answer is you are never. You will never feel ready. No matter who you are, no matter what you've done, you'll never feel ready. So you have to leap sometimes. Actually, when I applied at Industrial Light and Magic, I applied at the lowest job I could find.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I would think. I would think I would
yeah,
apply like to sweep the floor, like, and
yeah,
then
I couldn't get in as an artist. I wouldn't. And I had a figure drawing portfolio and everything, but I wouldn't have been able to compete with the art school people. I was a computer science major, but I could compete on technology and art, a little bit, enough to get that low level job backing things up to tape from Minority Report. But the point was, like, I was getting my master's in computer science. I had signed up for my master's. I was getting ready to take school, and I just thought, I'm just going to apply. And so I could give you 100 examples like this where they offer you a show, Transformers. Hey, do you want to take on Transformers? There are going to be these robots that turn into cars and back into robots. Well, how do we do that with rigging, with modern rigging tools? There's no way to do it. It can't be done actually with modern rigging tools. Well, do you want to take on the show? Yeah. And
yeah,
then you figure it out. So I would say that to you and to everybody else that's listening to this conversation, just know that, like, me, everybody that I know takes those leaps of faith, and you just have to make sure you're ready. It's about being prepared, and then a little luck, and then leaping when the time comes. And what I'll tell you, it's not about is just to make everybody's fears go away on some things. Is it's not about the software that you know at all. It's about how are you to work with? How's your skill in art? Have you trained your eye to know what looks right and what looks wrong? And can you be good to work with? Just a nice person. Can you take feedback? Can you try it blue? Well, you already told me to try it green and red. Yes, I know. Can you try it blue?
yeah, yeah.
I think those are the main things I would say. So if you have a leap ahead of you, don't rule stuff out for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of it is the soft skills. I hear from people all the time
Totally.
about the soft skills of
I'm
just
still working
like,
on those.
are you going to be a person I want to work with, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that does more for you
Yeah.
than knowing all the buttons on this piece of software.
And a lot of that is being reliable, honestly. Like if I'm working with people on a project like this and I'm putting this much of myself into it, I just want to be working with people who will deliver what they say, in some form. We all make mistakes, we all fall short sometimes, but I want to be working with people that are really trying.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of technology, you talked about software,
Yeah.
and about the idea of transformers and the rigging, and I even think back to Jurassic Park and the idea
Oh,
that
yeah.
doing something of that capacity.
Yeah.
What has been the big change in technology that you've
Oh
seen
man.
since, I guess, maybe Van Helsing?
Man, they're all building up on top of each other now. I will tell you that the first one that I started to notice was when I was in school. I went to a special place where they were studying animation, and the only reason they could do it is because they had a room full of 20 seats, like computers, that were the 25 or 40,000 US dollar computers,
Mm-hmm.
in 1998,
Yeah.
1998, right? So dollars, um, that were running the $25,000 alias license each computer.
Sure.
so that you could learn this stuff. So there was a huge barrier, and we had a donor that made it possible. And so a lot of us that got into the industry from that angle, were benefited by that donor. But back then, you had to have that. You had to get on that $25,000 box. So when I was trying to learn it, I went and I said to the animation department, "Hey, can I come to one of your classes?" And they said, "Yes, just don't touch the computers." So I had to sit in the back of the class without a computer, but then they would all leave, and I would lock the door, and I would stay
Yeah.
after and start running stuff on all the computers. And when I started at ILM, there was a fear because all of a sudden computers you could buy a Dell for $2,000 that could do basic 3D. And I remember that feeling of like, man, anybody's going to be able to do this. And it was a little scary. But now it's amazing. Like you see what's happening with Blender and with the CG community. You can be a 13-year-old who wants to learn this stuff, and you can get Nuke for free. You know,
Yeah.
you can just
And
download.
Unreal.
You can download DaVinci. I mean, it's really astounding. The landscape has shifted so much, and it's kind of democratized it to a kind of a fantastic degree. And sure, it's made it more competitive, but not in a bad way. I think. I
Yeah.
think you'd be surprised at how fast somebody who just is excited about the work and tries to do a good job and studies the art as well, how fast that person gets asked for on the next show. So
Yeah, I was trying to teach my son Unreal, and you can, as long as you have a PC with a
it's
video
free. Isn't
card,
that crazy?
you can just download it and just do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's just
And it's
there.
like, oh, I better buy a bunch of books. Well, no, you don't actually have to. You can go onto YouTube or, like the things that your organization offers too. It's like there's so much out there available for people who want to learn. And I want to say that I think it's very cool that you guys offer courses that allow people who are maybe already in the industry to branch out a little bit, because that's the future. You guys are
Yeah.
definitely aiming people towards the future. And I'll just say that to everybody here. It's not enough to just go into visual effects and say, I'm visual effects. I don't need to know about editing. No, that's not the future. In the future, you have to know, how does an edit come together?
Hmm.
These walls that were so high in like the old Hollywood, golden era or whatever, those are all disappearing, and all of us are going to have to know a little bit more. And it's kind of exciting.
I teach I teach at a college, and one of the things I often tell my students is, it would be easier if I was a history professor, because most of that doesn't change. It's the same thing every time.
Right.
Nowadays, it's like, oh, now I have to learn programming. Now I have to learn Python. Now I
Yeah.
have to learn,
Yeah.
you know,
Or at
something
least you have to
else.
learn how to use Claude Code or something to do these
Yeah,
days.
something
I mean,
like,
because that stuff is going to change it very fast. But I would also tell people not to be afraid of that, and just we have to work through the ethics as a community of how to use these new tools. But it's exciting. We should learn what we can learn, and when you're being a good artist and when you're not, when you're being lazy. So you have to stay a good artist and learn the new tools. And I think that there's a bright future for everybody who wants to do that.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career. Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
so let me get back to Rings of Power. I guess the creation of Mount Doom, as it explodes and overtakes the entire villages. How massive was that in terms of
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
That was okay. This is a story I think I've mentioned, but to a couple of people before, and I just wanted to say a brief version of it, in case you haven't heard it. It's when I started the show, one of the first things that I saw when I walked in was a room full of Post-it notes. And as I walked around, I realized, oh, this is where the professional writers are like breaking down the different aspects of the season. And they're very carefully, these different little things are making their way up onto the board. And one of them is like, in Numenor. And you see that and you go, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to make that. And then you see, each Post-it is giving you like a higher heart rate. And one of them was this idea of creating the volcano in the way that we did on season 1. And from the time I saw that Post-it to the time I actually had to deliver those shots, it was over a year. It was a year and a half probably, or more. But it was in the back of my head the whole time. And I'll tell you that the thing that I glommed onto to make it work for me, exciting for me, was the idea that when something like that happens, it isn't like somebody flipped a light switch. You know, when Mount St. Helens goes off, and it's an erupting volcano, it takes place over a couple of days. You know, and
Yeah.
those couple of days, you might think, oh, that was crazy, that big explosion. Glad that's over. And then meanwhile, here comes the mudslide, here comes the ash, here comes the heat wave. You know, the people in Pompeii had no idea that they should flee, you know, when the volcano went off. And it was really only when the first ashfall happened and then the blast hit them that they realized, well, you know, a lot of them were killed, really.
Yeah.
And I think it was something like 6 hours later or something. It was a long enough time that you could have hopped in a boat probably and made some headway getting away from there. And some did escape. So to me, those kind of stories were key and central. I wanted to make sure that when this happened, that they saw it and then they heard it and then they felt
Yeah.
it. So it's not just boom, and then we all fly everywhere. You know, it's like they should see it. They should stare at it. Like, you know, there's a moment if you watch the show where you can actually just see them going, that probably doesn't look good. You know, they're kind of looking at
Yeah.
this thing happening and they haven't even heard it yet. And when that sound wave hits, now it's like, oh no, it's going to get worse. Cause you know, it's after the sound wave, you've got the blast and then you've got the ash, you know, cloud coming.
Yeah.
So to me, it was about ratcheting that up in very realistic ways that are not hand wavy or something and fake, but ways that really, like it is if you got into the middle of a tsunami situation, you know, where it's like, this is getting bad. Oh, it's getting worse. Oh, it's going to get even worse, isn't it? Yes, it is. You know, and it just gets out of control to the point that, you know, we just decimated the entire Southlands, you know. And then you see that on the next episode with some of that beautiful lighting and work that was done to kind of, you know, give the post-volcanic look.
Yeah.
All of that stuff was planned out like the year and a half in advance.
Jeez.
And different
Funny.
vendors too, because it was right at the end of our season. So we had Weta on it. We had ILM doing some of the key shots. We had Rising Sun doing some of the shots. So it was really kind of like a amazing collaboration where we all just pretended we were one company for a couple months.
That's an amazing thing, because when you hear about like Marvel films and you hear about stuff like Weta working with the third floor, working with ILM, working with Perception, working with and you're all making the same place. You know, you're all making the same final battle scene, or you're making the same And I'm
Creature.
like, creature, yeah, like
Yeah, which is insane to me. But that's how it works sometimes. We have to do that sometimes.
that's yeah. You see all the when the credits roll and you see all these different production companies, and you're like, oh, these
Yeah.
all just kind of joined hands and signed together.
It
I
is
think
kind
it's
of fun though when you do that the first time. I mean, it's a pain. Sharing shots is never fun. But when you do it for the first time, like there's a camaraderie that has formed throughout the visual effects industry, alongside, you know, our little competitiveness about who's going to take home an award or something. There's a camaraderie that's there because we've, you know, joined forces on this one and then joined forces on that one, you know, and you get to the point where you've worked with so many people at different companies that the company, while it matters, doesn't become the central definition of the industry anymore. You know, it becomes like,
yeah.
"Oh, we're all visual effects artists and so worked at this company and then that company and then this company, you know.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's especially that way in the UK, I have to tell you. Like people who are here, it was a lot more common, I think, to move from, you know, the three big ones in London. So the attitude here is very exemplary in that way. Like there's a lot of acceptance of like, oh, you're going to NPC? Okay, I'm going to DNEG. I'll see you.
You know, it's funny when you talked about the Mountain Doom thing. This is a weird analogy. Well, as you described it, what I thought about was pregnancy, giving birth,
Yeah.
because it is like the water broke, and then
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
you sit for a couple hours and you go, I guess we should go to the hospital, like, and
Yeah.
maybe
You
you
never
rush to the
quite
hospital.
know if this is the, you know, the peak of the excitement or if this is just like the warning shot.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I
and
mean?
then all of a sudden, you know, bad things are coming.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's kind of like just a
Yeah.
bit of a contraction for there.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of things in life like that too, aren't there? Like, and I think that there's a real value in like, I don't know. I mean, not to be too serious about it, but like, you know, understanding that like in life, things can go wrong, you know, and they will. That's the nature of life, right? That things are going to go wrong for us. But to know that like that going wrong doesn't mean everything else is going to go wrong. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's okay after this. You know, stuff can continue to go wrong. And sometimes, you know, it's up to us to kind of notice like, this keeps going wrong. I think I'm going to change this in my life, you
Yeah.
know? little things
I've
like that.
gotten out of the habit of telling myself, because I used to do this thing where I told myself I'm having a bad day, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's 11 a.m. and I'm like,
yeah,
this is not a bad day. It's not gonna be a bad day.
yeah,
This is a bad circumstance.
yeah, yeah.
There's other things rolling in there.
This is the
Uh,
human experience. This is the normal human experience. I was actually talking to someone a couple of weeks ago about that, like when they were having a bad time and they're stressed and they were worried about money and everything, and they were feeling a little bit like, why me, you know? And I was like, actually, what you're experiencing is kind of that's the human thing.
I think the big shadow that looms over is Peter Jackson's
Of course, yeah.
Lord of the Rings. In
I mean, it's
terms
like
of
the best trilogy of all time, if not, one of the best film trilogies of
yeah,
all time.
and so that's there.
Yeah.
How much do you let that guide you versus how much do you try to separate yourself out from that? I'm thinking about like I didn't expect to see the Balrog
Yeah. Yeah.
in this, and I was like, do you just
Yeah. That was
take
cool.
the Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson Balrog, or do you?
I can tell you that's a great example too. I can go over kind of the way we handle it. I mean, first of all, we're all fans of Peter's movies, right? So I think
Sure.
that goes without saying. A lot of people got into the industry because of those movies and that are on our show. So we definitely, there's a spiritual connection there. And on the first season, we were with Weta. They, because now they're very busy with the other projects for James Cameron and things that they're working on. But in the first season, we were with Weta, and so a lot of the people that we were working with at Weta were people who worked on the original trilogy as well and wanted to come back to this world and work on it. So there's a lot of that kind of beautiful connection just in the people that work on this stuff. And I could name, many examples of that are kind of great and heartwarming. We had, one of the people that worked on the Balrog actually from Peter's movies was one of our supervisors. So, it was a really great setup. But when we approach these things, I would never want to copy what came before, only because it's just out of respect. If somebody designs something and put it out as their creative work, I don't want to commandeer that and then put it out as my creative work. But there are certain things that have also become part of our vocabulary, part of our mental vocabulary, part of our picture of Middle Earth, inextricably, right? There's just certain things in our minds that we know. A lot of us have an idea of what Minas Tirith looks like. Is it because of Peter's movies? Possibly, but Peter's movies have the look that was defined by art before, right? And I think that a lot of the stuff in Peter's movies is that way. You could go back to things that were amazing in Bakshi's that got resonated in those films, and also other design things. So the point is, there's all this creative work that's been done. You don't want to copy any of it. That would be disrespectful to the people that did that work. But in some cases, it's in here, it's in your memory, it's in your mind. So you want to rhyme with it. Like if we're gonna make a Balrog, I want at least the audience to know, oh, that's a Balrog, even if we don't copy it exactly. And so what I told the artist, Alan Williams, who was gonna work on that design with Nick Cave at Weta, I told Alan, don't watch the movies again. Don't, if you haven't watched it in 10 years, that's good. Just don't leave it out of the DVD player. And just pick up your pencil and just start sketching what you think a Balrog is and have fun with it. And we want to bring our own thing, but not just to say, oh, we brought our own thing to it. It's not either. It's not like, I got to be different. It's much more about, I want to respect the people that came before. I want to show something new. And Tolkien allowed us with a creature like the Balrog to say it's a Maya. To some degree, they get to choose their shape. This is what Tolkien said. And I don't know how that choosing happens, but in some way their shape is fungible, right? So they could look one way in the Second Age and another way in the Third Age, right? And there's a little bit of hand waving here, but what that allowed us to do is just design our own version of it. And if you put them side by side, they're just completely different. The shape of the face is longer and sharper, and our horns come really forward like a Texas Longhorn almost. And the other the movie version is more of like a ram's horn type thing. And they're both cool. And if it is the same individual, it's fun to think about that, being two forms of the same person, if it is. But that's how we approached it. We just said, don't look at the movies. We know it's in our heads. We're not denying that it's in our heads either. And we used Weta for that creature as well, which was a nice little spiritual connection because, we were able to use Peter's company to make that creature on the season where they had joined us, which I personally just loved doing that. And now if you look back at how we handled the flame and the smoke and everything too, a lot of that is our own as well. Like if you kind of compare it to those older movies, I mean, what they did in the year that they did it is so astoundingly amazing. It's one of the key creatures, let's say, of visual effects, and so let's give them kudos. And then as we've made our version, I think we've taken tools that are available today, and I think we've
Sure.
updated some things about it, and tried to make those as beautiful as we possibly can, out of respect for the people that came before, and out of respect for our audience, in an attempt to rhyme. Does that kind of answer the question?
That absolutely answers the question.
Yeah, and we do that with a lot of things. Like there's certain things that just, you just don't want to copy a design, but you know that like the artwork has looked a certain way about something for since Tolkien wrote the books, and so there's certain things that are just part of the vocabulary, and we just try to be respectful to those who came before.
I have one final question. If you weren't a visual effects supervisor and your life had taken a different direction, what would you be doing right now, or what would you want to be doing right now?
I will tell you, the whole time I was a kid and in high school and part of college, um, without a doubt in my mind, I was going to be a makeup artist. Like that's what I was going to do. I was going to do creatures and character makeups, and I studied that stuff like as hard as a kid in Idaho could without the internet,
Yeah.
with the books you could get at the library that told you how to make a plaster cast, sculpt the nose, and then you could cast the nose in latex and then glue it on the face. I did all that stuff when I was 13, 14, 15, 16. And it was only after I got to college and Jurassic Park had just come out. And I also loved programming my computer, and I started to kind of put one and one together and think like, maybe this CG thing is the thing to kind of aim towards. And so I shifted towards that. But if I wasn't doing this, I would have loved to be a prosthetic makeup artist. I would have loved that.
Wow. Wow. Very cool. And you
Yeah.
did a little bit of, I guess digital creature creation sort of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's sort of
I've
the
been a
same.
creature guy my whole time, and it's been a kind of a fun full circle thing. And now when I work on a project like this with Barry Gower and his team, I'm just always over like looking at what the makeup guys are doing and making sure that they feel like celebrities, like, wow, this is amazing, because they've got, a fanboy on set all the time. And I'll never stop being excited about that stuff. I love it. I still remember the steps to gluing on prosthetics and stuff like that. But I did the shift, and I'm glad I did. I think it's a good fit.
I still remember like the Rick Baker and the Stan Winston articles in like Fangoria and
man.
stuff.
I would save all of those, and I would take the pictures out and I would try to sculpt them. Like I did myself up as, the big gangster guys from the Rocketeer, Lothar from the Rocketeer. I did myself up as the Michael Jackson werecat from Thriller.
Oh, wow.
Did myself up as the zombies from Thriller. The guy from Legend I did on myself like
Oh,
the kid.
Tim
I
Curry
did
from
quantum
Legend.
fiberglass and everything, if you can imagine.
Wow.
It was like a lumpy guy version,
Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all your questions, and it's been so much fun.
Thank you
This
for
is
having me.
kind of a passion thing for me. I want to thank you again for asking all the questions. Visual Effects Supervisor Jason Smith, thank you so much. I am Chad Anderson again of Filmmaker U. We are here at filmmakeru.com or on Instagram at filmmaker_u. We'll see you again in a future episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you.